Thoughts are racing, spinning fast. Ideas flow but never last. Waves of wonder, thoughts untamed. Nothing ever stays the same. Rambling on, no straight lines. Welcome to my busy mind. Questions, answers, here they go. Digging deeper, let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to Ramblings of a Busy Mind, the podcast. And I'm here today with Connie Pretula, who is and I gotta look it up, a certified nutritional practitioner and the Menopause Navigator. And I love that you have put yourself first in your name tag.
Oh, thank you.
That's so
Thank you
cool.
for having me, Natasha.
You're very welcome. So let's have a talk, a conversation.
Yeah.
You help women through menopause.
Yes.
And if I remember back my time menopause, which was during COVID, thankfully, because I was so mean, it can be very upsetting. It can be very stressful, and nothing fits and nothing works, and you are just a bunch of emotions that don't know where to go to. Do you find that in your clients?
Eh, so everybody's very different. As I like to say, every woman is unique, and how she experiences menopause is going to be unique. Some women will experience similar to their mothers, but I find that's happening less and less because as generations go on, women are exposed to different things than what their mothers were, chemically, emotionally, all those types of things. So yes, for some women, it can literally be debilitating where they just can't function. For some women, I do have people say to me, "Oh, I don't need you. My menopause has been a breeze." So there are women that go through it and they just feel nothing at all. But it can be a very confusing time, and you can suddenly feel like your body has abandoned you, or your body's just doing its own thing and you can't control it. So yeah, it can be a very unsettling time.
Mine was not too bad because I didn't realize it that I actually was going through menopause. So the only thing that I realized was that I was a lot angrier than I usually was, and a lot more upset and emotional in a way that the tears came. I never had hot flashes. That started way later. I was cold all the time. I was freezing, and I didn't have that before. Interesting part was that food cravings changed. And I'm very aware of that when certain foods come up in my mind constantly, then I definitely have to go that way because my body needs it. And my go-to was sesame oil. Like I was eating it by the spoonful. And then my naturopath said at one time that it's an estrogen detoxifier or detox basically that you do
It,
with.
it, so what the sesame does is the sesame supports the progesterone.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily an estrogen detoxifier, but what it's doing is supporting that progesterone cycle. And so it makes sense with you feeling angrier, more emotional. Yeah, you probably had higher levels of estrogen and lower levels of progesterone, which is very normal. I mean, that's the perimenopause stage, most
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and then in 2023, since 2023, the blood work came constantly back as post-menopause. So,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. It's an interesting journey, and nobody really like my generation. My I know my mom had hot flashes, but there was not really talk about what happens to you or like why is that such a non-topic with girls or young women or all of
It,
us go through it.
Exactly. I was actually talking about this recently, how in school we'll have sex education class. So we learn about, getting a period, having babies, but nobody ever teaches us about menopause. In fact, when I went through menopause, so my last period was April of 2011. So I'm basically 14 years post-menopause. Perimenopause in 2011 wasn't even really a word that you heard people talk about. So I really had no idea. Mine just suddenly came on. And even my doctor just kind of said, well, you're at that age. He didn't even say, well, you're probably going through menopause. And then with some of the symptoms that I was experiencing, I actually called my mom. I said, Mom, would this, is this what's happening to me? And her response was, oh, honey, yes, it sounds like you're going through the change of life. So it is unfortunate because women don't even know what to experience. And then the other unfortunate thing is because it's not really talked about, younger women, when they do hear about perimenopause, menopause, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to go through this. It sounds awful. And that's where I'm trying to change the narrative of no, it's amazing, but yes, your body needs support because I love being in menopause. It's
Yeah, it gives you so much more freedom, honestly.
more freedom. I feel more emotional balance. I also feel more energy. I mean, I used to get hit hard during when I would have my period. So I'd have PMS and then I'd have my period. So I was generally losing, 2 weeks to 10 days out of every month. Once it all stopped, I'm like, this is utopia. I don't have to worry about this anymore. So I love it that I've got my energy and my strength all month long.
Yeah. Mine was that 3 days before I started my period, my magnesium levels would drop so low that I got migraines.
Yes, yeah, that's
And as I'm clenching, everything here went tight, so I had lymph buildup, and that all created a migraine. And in my worst times, I went through 40 Robux and 40 ibuprofen in 2 weeks just to be able to work. If anybody would ever had said, put your feet in Epsom salt water in the morning and you're gonna be done with it, it would have been nice. It took me quite a while. And not having that anymore is so cool. That's the thing. Like you don't have headaches for 5 days. You don't
it.
have the cramps. You don't have the backache or whatever. So all of that is gone. And men can't appreciate that because most men have no clue what's going on and how bad it can feel. Right.
Well, and that's the other unfortunate part, right? Is, again, a long time ago, it was like, we don't talk about this in front of the men, like it was a big secret of what we were going through. I mean, God forbid you ever say the word. I love introducing myself as the menopause navigator when I'm networking because men kind of like, she said the word. What do I do now? And that's where I'm really trying to normalize it for men and for women. And I'm not afraid to talk about any aspect of menopause, whether it be from the symptoms to all the way to the sexual changes that happen. Because I feel it's important to talk about. So of course men can't understand it because nobody talks about it. And I've had men say to me, well, I've had divorced men say to me, my wife was an absolute, terror. She was awful. I mean, they use some really awful words. And I say, well, imagine what she was going through, and nobody was really helping her and giving her guidance. She was confused. She didn't even know how to tell you what was happening to her body. So that's the unfortunate part is that it has such a bad reputation. And again, that's my goal. I want to I want women to know that it's a powerful time. It's a rite of passage, right? A time we should be excited about.
And the thing is, when you have the right support and bringing it back to burnout, how many of us women in that age are in burnout, and then you have the freaking hormones playing another
Yeah.
not nice game to like really how do you say that? I'm losing my words. But the thing is, you get a double whammy. You have that burnout, you don't know where you start, where you end, and then that comes on top.
Think that's exactly it. And this is why, again, a lot of women don't understand what's happening to their body, because if you think about most women up until the age of 40, because perimenopause can start somewhere around age 40, sometimes a little bit sooner, depending on your hormonal makeup. But if you think about what women are doing, okay, if they've had children, so they're looking after their children, if they've got a spouse, if they've got aging parents, they're running their children to all types of activities. They may be also working at the same time. And of course, if they're a single mom, they've got even more responsibility. So every woman at that stage of their life, when they're raising family, trying to climb the corporate ladder, look after everything, every symptom they're feeling, they're pushing it aside. I'll just get through this. I mean, mom's never sick, right? She's always pushing herself. And so we've pushed our body to the limit up to that point. Then comes along perimenopause. And so the body's been overloaded from all the stress. And, literally at that point, it probably is already burnt out, but we're pushing anyway, and then the hormones start to change. And what we're asking our body to do, our adrenal glands start to take over. Well, if our adrenal glands have been supporting us for the last how many years, and now we're asking them to do more, like they're like, no, no, I'm not going to do this. So this is exactly why, some women can feel such huge effects of menopause because their adrenal glands are burnt out, their body overall is burnt out, but they're not realizing it. And again, this is where menopause gets such a bad reputation that it causes all these issues. And I actually say to younger women, well, if you come to me in your mid 30s or early 40s, we can probably make the journey a whole lot easier. But, we always put things off, right? Until our body's screaming at us.
I had the luck that it was during lockdown, so I couldn't see my clients. My business was fairly low key. I was busy during COVID because lots of my clients are in Germany, so the business clients. So I still had work, but it was not that I had to go out and deal with anybody or had to fix fast or whatever because everything was on still point, right? Everything was shut down and don't move, which was which probably made it way easier for me than it would have been if I had had to work, because with the burnout, having that on top, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen my naturopath fairly regularly, just not during the first year. And then not like I knew I was going into menopause because in 2018 the fluctuation started. So I knew that was already happening, but I didn't know that I was like full blown during 2020. And because again, not really knowing the symptoms. And then looking back, I'm like, thankfully I was alone in my house because the only one I was yelling at was the cats. And they just disappeared when they didn't like me. But yeah, like grumpy and don't talk to me and just leave me alone. And that's not me usually. I can be clear in my boundaries these days, but I'm usually not angry with you,
Right.
right? Um, if you were to give anybody a tip, what would be the first sign to look for if they don't come early enough to you? But if they realize there's some changes happening, fluctuation is the first one that I realized, but what signs are there that you can actually point out and what can be done then to support?
Yeah. So, I was one of those people. I didn't have any signs at all until the hot flashes hit, like boom, all of a sudden one day. So it can be that subtle that all of a sudden, boom, one day you just start experiencing all of the symptoms. And that's generally the symptoms are stronger about the last year or so before your last period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to talk about subtle signs, I mean, it can be subtle changes in your sleep. You know, if you notice that maybe you're not sleeping as well anymore. But again, for a lot of women, this can be a difficult one because if they've got children, a lot of times they're not sleeping well anyways because they've always got one ear, you know, out for kids or whatever. But it can be subtle changes in your sleep. It can be very subtle changes in your menstrual cycles. So sometimes it will become a little bit shorter or a little bit longer. Sometimes it will become a little bit lighter or a little bit heavier. You know, like there's nothing specific, but if you're starting to notice some changes, or even the days, you know, all of a sudden, if you were a very regular person, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, this is going a couple days longer than normal, or oh, I got it a little sooner. Those are signs that it can start changing. The other thing that can start to change is, you know, if you've eaten a certain way most of your life, and then all of a sudden, excuse me, I'm just going to take a drink of water. If you've eaten a certain way all of your life, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're maybe putting on a little bit of weight, it's not coming off as easily. You know, you might just start noticing little changes in your body shape. And you know, that can just indicate that your hormones are changing. But then there's other symptoms. I mean, there's things like some women start to experience joint pain. And this is where it can be kind of scary because if they're experiencing joint pain, they're going to the doctor saying there's nothing wrong. You know, this is where it can become very worrisome for women of what's wrong with me? You know, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel like this? Yet they tell me there's nothing wrong with me. So it can be things like that as well too. Emotions can start to change. Um, yeah, so typically the hot flashes, night sweats, some of the, you know, really major symptoms as far as changes in your skin, maybe becoming a little drier, those types of things. Generally, those are more that last year, right before your last period, and then start to show up as well too. You know, once you've had that last period and you've gone the 12 months with no period, you're post-menopause, but sometimes during that time, like after that last period, you start to experience a lot of symptoms as well too.
Tips for the husbands of boyfriends. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah, tips for the husband. And you know, I do feel sorry for men, right? And some women get kind of angry at me when I say that, but think of it, you know, if we ask our husbands, how do I look in this outfit? We generally never believe them if they tell us we look incredible because it's like, oh, you're just saying that, you know, like we play these games with men, right? Of not believing what they're saying. So for a man to say, honey, what's wrong with you? I mean, he has no idea what's going to come back to him. So I think for men, try to do some of your own research. And that's actually something I've done. I've written, I think, 5 or 6 blogs on my website specifically for men to understand what women will experience. And I still have a few more that I want to write. I haven't finished the series. But, you know, body odor can start to change. Well, women are very conscious of their body odor. In fact, they can be very insecure about their body odor. So this is where sometimes a woman will say, you know, if she feels that she's smelling different, she might reject her husband and not want to have sex, right? So this is where I think it's good for men to try to do some of your own research rather than sort of straight out ask her, what's wrong with you? Just, you know, kind of say, is there something I can do to help out? You know, or you've got to find that really easy way to kind of approach the subject because again, a lot of women go to their doctors and they're not given any support. And this is why women are, combing the internet to find out, what's wrong with me? What is menopause? What am I feeling? There's a lot of misinformation out there as well, too. But for men, I would say, try to do some of your own research. In fact, with all of the AI modeling for searching now, they can probably get some pretty good information as far as what do I need to know as a man, about a woman going through perimenopause or menopause.
And maybe pay more attention to their needs instead of your needs. That might be one.
Well, yeah. So you mean pay more attention to
Helping more instead of expecting that she does everything.
exactly, exactly. If they notice that the woman is struggling, then yeah, try and pitch in, without saying, you know, why aren't you doing these things? Or, why can't you handle all this? You used to be able to, rather than sort of being like accusatory of it, just say, can I help you out? Or is there something that I can do? Or just say, I'm going to do this for
Yeah.
you. Because as women, we're very reluctant to sometimes give things up as well, too, because sometimes we have such high standards of how we want things done. And this is where, as women, we also need to understand, look, if somebody's offering to help us at that time and we're feeling awful, accept the help and lower your expectations. If you're getting some help, you can't expect that it's going to be done exactly the same way that you would do it.
Yeah, and I find that so funny because on one hand, and I've been there too. Like on the one hand, you complain about not getting help, and then you're not happy that you're getting help. That's the point. Like if help is given or offered, then accept it and just go with it. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's an interesting topic. Your burnout story. I know there is one. Do you want to share?
Yeah. One, two, three. Probably, well, yeah, I have a number of burnout stories. And I don't say that as, that I'm wearing this badge of burnout, but I've been through burnout a few times in my life for various reasons. The first one was after my separation from my marriage. Um, the biggest one was after I left the corporate world. And I knew that I wanted to become a nutritionist. So I was, ready to enroll in school, to go back to school to learn about nutrition. And I knew that I was burnt out. That's why I left the corporate world. My digestion was messed up. I wasn't performing. I wasn't proud of the job that I was doing for my employer. That's why I ended up quitting because I just knew that I wasn't performing the way that I knew I was capable of. I wasn't sleeping well. My body ached. I was always inflamed. Everything felt swollen all the time. And so I left work. And then 2 weeks after that, my mom's kidney burst.
Hmm.
And we didn't at first know that her kidney burst. That's a story in itself of getting the doctors to diagnose it. But once that happened, I lived a 3 hour plane ride away from her, so I had to put all of my plans on hold and my healing on hold to help her. So I went home, and I mean, I don't say that in a way that begrudgingly. I mean, I was actually glad I wasn't working so that I could go home and look after her and support her. So I went home to look after her, to get her through the initial healing that she needed to do so that she could start to live independently again. But again, meanwhile, I've just left the corporate world severe burnt out. Like all I wanted to do was sleep and rest and look after myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to balance between trying to look after myself and look after her. And then shortly after that, I had a friend going through a very, very difficult time. I was actually worried that he was on the verge of suicide. And so here now I'm trying to balance my mom and this friend, and the friend was, not close, like living a distance away as well too. And so I'm balancing between the two, trying to keep both of them, you living. And so, yeah, through all of that, I'm trying to heal my body. So by the time I got him settled, got my mom settled because she needed a secondary operation for her kidney. By the time I got all of them settled, it was, let's see, I left in August and it was the following March before I finally had time to focus on myself. And that's where it just everything let go. My body was in pain constantly. My digestion was even more messed up. I became reclusive. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to go out. Because I was in pain, I couldn't work out. So I basically sat on the couch or slept. And it was a very, very dark time for me, a very dark time. And it was hard because um, people didn't see me that way. Everybody saw me as strong and capable, and I was the person that supported everybody else. So, some people said, like, "What's wrong with you?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I I can't do anything right now. I can't handle anything right now. I need to heal my body. And I ended up in a very deep depression. And the only thing that really kept me going was one thing I did do was I continued to push forward with enrolling in school. So I completed my application, sent in, my resume to be accepted. And even when I was accepted and school started, I just thought, how am I going to think? How am I going to remember? I'm going to have to write exams. And I'm grateful for that time because even though I was so sick when I entered school, I decided that everything I was learning, I was going to apply to myself. And the majority of our teachers were naturopaths. So I thought, you know what? Here's my opportunity to ask as many questions as I could. So in a way, knowing that I had this passion to learn nutrition, that's what kept me alive because I really was in a very deep, dark place. And logically, I knew I shouldn't be, but I knew I was in a deep, dark place.
And then there is the guilt trip of why are you like that, and like your own guilt trip. But I find it's really interesting. I just had a talk with a friend of mine, a conversation, and she goes like, I feel so guilty, and I'm like, why do you feel guilty? Because I'm not moving forward. And I'm like, look at where you have come from and where you're at now, and be
Yeah.
gentle with yourself. And s- burnout is something that you don't really get out of your system because your body remembers. And as soon as you get in a similar situation, your body will shut you down. It goes
Yes.
into the same pattern again. And as we are not really, and I'm saying that as somebody who removes patterns energetically, we're not paying attention to that. So I've never worked on my own energetic patterns or emotional patterns related to burnout. I've never done because I never thought about it. Right? And I know that I took all my trainings whenever I was the worst case.
Interesting.
I started my Ayurvedic training with a blood pressure of 140 over 120.
Wow.
And the company doctor told me, I'll give you 3 days. If it's not coming down by then I'll send you to the hospital. And that was the year end of the company. So he basically kept me on no matter what, just to finish the year, and the company came first. And if you look back at your life, like you said, the first one with the end of your partnership or
Marriage.
marriage. Um, Everybody or most people still talk about burnout in a sense of work, but it's not only related to work. It's
No.
related to everything.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
just not defining it as that.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I knew it was my marriage that was, I had a demanding job at the time, but it wasn't the job that was burning me out. It was 18 years of emotional abuse
Hmm.
from my husband that burnt me out. And again, I knew I couldn't perform at work. So, I took a leave of absence from work. But no, yeah. And I tell people that, it was my marriage. It wasn't work.
Well, the question is just which is the biggest factor that's overwhelming you, right?
Well, exactly. And, for me, when I left my marriage, when I left, I just knew I needed to get out. I knew I needed to leave. And so I did. What was interesting is I didn't realize what I'd been through for 18 years because my husband was not physically abusive. And this is the part that was very difficult as well too, because everybody talks about the physical abuse. So when I left, a lot of people questioned me. Well, why did you leave? You had such a good life with him.
Mhm.
And it was hard to explain to people what was going on behind closed doors. And so there was a stigma around that.
Mhm.
But it also, because I kept pushing emotions down and pushing emotions down while I lived with him, once I was out of that scenario, that allowed these emotions to start to come up.
And then they come.
And it
Oh,
was about a year after, and I'm like, oh my, what is happening to me? I couldn't handle anything.
hmm.
And so that's where I knew I needed to take time away from work to start to like let some of this stuff start to unpack. So we don't even realize what's happening to us, right? Or what we're doing to survive situations, whether it be, personal or whether it be business wise. We're you we're in survival mode in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or
We
form.
don't start out when we start in the relationship or in the workplace. We don't start out like that. It develops in that. And
Exactly.
part of that is for sure our own inability to analyze what's happening and to be
Yeah.
aware. It's like the what do you say? The frog in the hot water, right?
Yes.
If you boil a frog, as bad as that sounds, if you turn the heat up slowly, nothing will happen. And if it's hot boiling, he will jump out right away. And
Yeah.
that's burnout. You don't like I look back at my life and I realized that the first signs were actually there at 18 that I could go in burnout because already at that age I was putting my work as an intern, not even as a full employee, as an intern before my health.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I have been dealing with part of that since I've been 18, 20, around that time, right? But would I have ever said I'm in burnout? No. And like my diagnosis came after I immigrated,
Okay.
where I already was like 15 years in it, right? So
Right.
now I'm starting to go off.
Yeah. Well, and part of that too comes from um, corporate attitude. The first company I worked for, one of Canada's largest financial institutions, and they basically guilted you if you were sick. You shouldn't be sick. And then, of course, we had times of the year that were very busy, especially RSP season. Well, you can't be sick during RSP season. I can't even name the number of years that I came into work deathly ill during RSP season because, we had to get everybody's contributions in. I mean, this is years ago where, systems are different now, but it's still a very busy time and you were basically guilted. And if you did call in sick, well, everybody in the office kind of like gave you the evil eye when you came in the next day. So, there was this whole programming around keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. You want to get, you want to climb the corporate ladder, you've got to work longer hours. You should be here on the weekends, like we were told all these things of this is how you get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that, those things eventually start to burn you out. So if you have both a stressful relationship and a really, a demanding job, well, you've got
Yeah.
perfect scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and again, the thing is too, like the support system most times is not there, so you're not only pressured from the company, but from friends and family. Oh, don't be like that. Judgment is a big part, and expectations are a big part that play a role in burnout because they won't let you fall back into yourself and realizing what is yours, what is somebody else's. And that's what I try to do with my work. I try to reconnect you with your body because if you are listening to what your body tells you, you are aware and you will definitely make other choices and definitely not react, you will respond to your circumstances. You will not react because a reaction is instinct, while a response is like, here's my information and I make a decision. And I didn't realize that either, like how disconnected from my body I was and
But
ignored it. That's was the worst part. Like the signs were there, the body was yelling at you. Like who would eat 40 of those freaking pills and then 40 ibuprofen at the same time? Basically, you're killing yourself with pills just to go to work.
yeah, but that's also part of the social programming as women, right? When I'm working with women, I would say almost every woman that comes to me is disconnected from her body.
Mm,
And there's many reasons, partially how we're feeling, so pushing ourselves to go to work, so doing all these things like you said, taking ibuprofen, all that kind of stuff to just to be able to get there and somewhat perform the job. But the other part that comes with it is the social programming around how we should look, what we should wear, all those types of things. So many women, they put their demands on their body to just support them. And I say most women, this is where our body ends at our neck. We don't want to pay attention to the rest of the stuff because, the pain or whatever we're experiencing is going to hold us back or make us, I guess maybe feel weak to a certain extent that we can't
mhm.
perform at the level that's being demanded of us. So it is, that's one of the most important things for me is to help women start to make peace with their body. Their body's not fighting against them. Their body, really, when we think about it, our body is doing everything it possibly can to keep us alive, regardless of how stressed we are or what we're going through. And so when we start to be kind to our bodies, and with the work that you do or the work that I do, when we start to support our bodies, they're so amazing how they can start to turn around. And I honestly do feel better. I'll be 64 in August. And I honestly feel better at this age than I did in my late 40s and early 50s. And it's because of all the support I've been giving to my body since 2014 when I entered school. September 2014, that's when the journey started to continue to support my body, heal my body to get to where I am today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. And when you realize how much you can do for yourself And part of that is listening. Like as I said, for me, when I crave chocolate, I know I need magnesium.
Right.
If I'm low on iron, I will eat meat. And so on. So there is certain things that come up when you need them. To the point, I'm to the point that my naturopath these days says, okay, this is the supplement that I recommend for you. You make sure you take it whichever way you need it, basically, because she knows I'm pretty well aware. And I have things that come up constantly in my mind, and that's my sign that I need them. And as soon as I start forgetting them, I know I'm done.
Right.
Right. But I know my body. I've come to learn it and I've made an effort to get to know the signs, the symptoms and work with it. Am I always there? No, naturally not, because I'm only human. I only have one brain and sometimes my brain doesn't want to work. But I know that I'm better off listening to my body than to my brain.
Yes. Yes.
Because my brain says you have to go this way and no, I'm here. I'm over there.
Yeah.
And this helps me, not this. And that's for some people is kind of scary because we're trained so much to listen to our brain, and our brain is not always our friend.
Yeah. One of my favorite books that I read a number of years ago, actually, I listened to the audiobook first, is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Hmm.
And he, I think he calls the brain the inner roommate, right? Like it's that inner voice that passes judgment on us and is can be nasty to us and all those types of things. And reading that book made me really realize how we just really need to question some of the things that come up in our brain.
It's so funny because there is a cartoon that's a heart, like they took the heart and the brain and they talk with each other. And the brain is always the one who is the spoilsport, who's not funny, who's keeping you in line, and the hearts go like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But that's the way it is, right? Your brain tries to keep you safe in a way that it perceives as safe,
Yes.
but it's not always your best.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connie, I think we got pretty well a lot of things covered. And we are I don't know, where were we? My timer is hiding on me. Yeah, we are an hour in, I think, or something like that. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'll put your information down there in the description. So if anybody is drawn to you and resonates with you and wants to work with you, they can find you. Is there anything else you want to share at the end as a tip, trick, word of wisdom for women or men, depending on that hasn't been touched or not touched enough?
Yeah, I'd say, as far as for women, um, we really need to be our own advocate when we're not feeling well. And sometimes it might mean, seeing various practitioners, people that, you might resonate with one more than the other. I mean, uh, you know, the medical system didn't help me. They just kept telling me, well, your blood tests look great.
Hmm.
So I think that, that's where we really need to be our own advocate, most definitely, and get advice that's specific for you. There's so much generalization out there,
Hmm.
and that's what can keep people stuck because they're following somebody else's advice or the general advice on the internet or on social media, wherever. Generalization's not going to help you. You need somebody who's going to work specifically with you, specifically what's going on with you. So I'd say and don't try not to lose hope. I'm not going to say don't lose hope. Try not to lose hope because really menopause, as I say, is an amazing time. It's a powerful time for women. And so hang in there, you will get through it. And the other thing is what happens to a lot of women, they keep getting told that that's menopause, that's menopause, that's menopause, where for some women, it's actually a thyroid issue. And there's not enough practitioners or doctors that are checking thyroid. So if you're not feeling well, a woman shouldn't have to go through menopause for 10 years. there's something underlying there that's happening. So that's where you really need to be your advocate and push. And, I guess for men and women together, figure out how you can communicate together. Men, all I can say is no, she's not just generally bitchy or trying to be bitchy. That's just, women aren't here to make men's lives miserable. That's not what
We try
that's not
not
what
to.
that's not what it's all about. But I guess gently try to understand and keep the communication lines open, especially in couples. There's things that are happening physiologically with men at the time that a woman's going through menopause. So he's seeing changes in himself, she's seeing change in herself, and both of them are kind of scared to talk about it because they don't know how this is going to affect their relationship. So try to keep the communication lines open and just, like they say, you don't know what battle somebody else is fighting, right? And so this is the case with women when they're going through menopause. We don't want to feel the way we're feeling, but sometimes we can't control it.
Yeah, communication is key. And I find that the worst part is then when somebody comes in and says, I know he thinks. No, you don't.
No. Actually, I'll share something with you. I, a couple of years ago, did a survey on LinkedIn for men. And I reached out to every one of the men that I'm connected to. I had over 300 people or 300 men that I reached out to. And I forget exactly, I think I had about 30% that responded. So I got a really good response rate. And almost 90% of men wanted to know exactly what a woman was experiencing in menopause. And when I asked women, do you think that men care about what you're experiencing in menopause? Every woman said, no, they don't. But that's not true. The men do care. They just don't know. They don't care that your estrogen's changing and your progesterone's changing. Like, they don't care about that kind of stuff. They want to know kind of what's really happening, what you're feeling emotionally. Those are the things that they want to try to figure out how to navigate. So men truly are interested. Yeah, there's some out there that don't care at all, and that's on them. But most men really want to know. So that's where the communication is so important.
A little bit of understanding and compassion goes a long way, and trying to put yourself in the other shoes.
Yeah.
That's the biggest part. Like when you have a discussion with somebody else, don't expect them to be you, because they're not. Never ever.
Exactly. We're all unique. We all think differently. So yeah, you just have to open the conversation and listen. And that's sometimes what women need. They just need somebody to listen. They don't need to fix whatever. They just need somebody to listen.
Connie, thank you so much. That was so interesting. And even for me, some things that become clearer afterwards. But the point really is, we all are just humans, and we all are just us. And if we're not communicating, who will understand it?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I wish you all the best. And as I said, if anybody would like to reach out to you, your information will be on the bottom in the description. And probably won't be the last thing that we see from each other.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Natasha, for having me as a guest.
Thoughts are racing, spinning fast. Ideas flow, but never last. Waves of wonder, thoughts untamed. Nothing ever stays the same. Rambling on, no straight lines. Welcome to my busy mind. Ideas fade, all the to shine. Oh, welcome to my busy mind. Questions, answers, here they go. Digging deep, let's start the show. Questions, answers, here they go.